Hello and welcome to the June Internationals Round 4 review brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby predictions and opinion. That's what we do here. Predictions and opinion, that's just pretty much it. And joining me is one of the team. It's Ashwin, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How you doing?
Not so bad, not so bad.
Good.
Got a bit of a cold still, but definitely better than I was at the weekend. So getting there. And I've got my nice roaring fire. Because for those of you who aren't in New Zealand, we have some pretty cold weather. We've got this cold front coming up from the Antarctic. We've got an Antarctic blast blowing through the country, and it's going to get cold. So tomorrow night you might even see me in a few more layers, looking like Mr. Michelin Man doing the show for the House Rugby Chat. And tomorrow night, what we will do, we'll run through our winners and losers of the June Internationals. That'll be our second question tomorrow night. So for tonight, we'll mainly look at round 4 rather than looking back at the whole season. Jack reckons it's not cold in Auckland. Yeah, but you Kiwis don't know how to build houses. You don't understand what sort of temperature is. I'm afraid. Some of us know, having lived on the equator, I know what hot is, and this is cold. So kicking us off, what we'll do is we'll run through the T1 games, and we'll and then we'll have a quick chat about the Tier 2 ones afterwards. Christian's with me. Yep, it's cold. Good on you, Christian. You got the right answer. So New Zealand France. New Zealand won 49-14. So one-way traffic and absolute trancing, was it?
Yep.
No. You don't know anything. Oh, why do I have you on the show? Jeez.
Oh no, I'm back to being wrong again.
Sorry, for those of you who weren't around for the... See, what Ashwin forgets is that not all of our conversations are live to everybody. He doesn't really... He forgets that things like pre-show chats aren't on air and that show notes aren't displayed to everybody. He just thinks everyone has the same access he does. He doesn't realise the privileged situation he's in. But yeah, part of the pre-show chat when we were just getting ready for the show, Ashwin actually got something right. It was amazing. Come on. The first half was definitely not one-way traffic. We had a real game in our hands for the first half hour.
No, absolutely no. Look, it wasn't one-way traffic, and the office conversation actually was. The fact is that they have actually been the two games that ended up being big score lines for the All Blacks were close. Up to like about sort of 60 minutes, definitely at Eden Park, 60 odd minutes. I don't know what point it was actually that started to run away with the All Blacks on Saturday. I didn't actually take note, but yeah, look, it was close for a time. A lot of discussion, obviously.
Take note here, read my notes. There you go.
Hang on. Obviously, a lot of discussion about certain incidents that happen in a match and that sort of thing. But my view on that is, and we did again office discussion, is that you got to build a thicker skin if you're going to let one decision ruin your game.
Yeah, maybe so. But it was 14 all up until sort of the half-hour mark. Scott Barrett as the only Barrett actually starting this game, which is a bit of a flip from the previous game. We had all three starting. He got a bit of a poor pass early on, but after that had a really good game, and it was a bit scrappy. France did what they've been doing in a lot of these games, which is keeping ball in hand. They've not been kicking. They kept the same sort of game style, and yeah, it was 14 all. Some great offloading by the French in particular, which was causing the All Blacks defence some problems. The scramble defence was still good, but it was the offloads were working.
Yeah, look, there was the big thing from the game is when France were in the game, the All Blacks just couldn't shut down their offload game. Their offload game was quite accurate, especially in that first half. Did fall off in the second half. Passes started to miss their targets, etc. But in the first half in particular, it's just like every sort of offload or miracle ball that they tried to offload hit their targets. And the All Blacks, they generally can wrap the ball up in a tackle scenario, and they weren't able to do that. And that's what was causing the biggest amount of problems, I felt.
Yeah, and it's been a long time since we've seen the All Blacks out offloaded, especially with Sonny Bill Williams playing. But the All Blacks 8 offloads to the French 13. So definitely the French out. I say that's how the French sort of managed to do this sort of thing. Managed to break down this defence because again, 85% tackling by the All Blacks. Good tackling. Had to make 142 tackles, which is a fair old chunk. The French down at 79%, but most of those missed were in the second half rather than the first half. And then we had our moment of controversy, which seems to be de rigueur for all of these games, and it had to go the All Blacks' way, and we have to all point our fingers and say, bad ref, bad ref. And
the fact that the All Blacks are IRB favourites.
Oh, absolutely. It's a conspiracy, I tell you.
I do, absolutely.
Let me take off my silver hat, and then my tinfoil hat. Perhaps I'll make one for tomorrow night's show. So the DMAC, basically the referee got in the way and of the French scrum half. Now, would the French scrum half have stopped DMAC? Probably not, but there was definitely the chance of it. If we go and read the laws, though, of the rugby laws, there's no law about the referee colliding with a non-ball carrying player, but there is with ball carrying players and with the ball. And so technically the referee probably got this right. In reality, common sense tells us that the try should have been disallowed and we should have gone back to the scrum because the referee...
Or a penalty.
No,
or a penalty for the scrum half leaving the scrum before the ball had exited.
Oh, give me a break. The scrum half, and the next one you're going to talk about is, but the scrum had wheeled more than 90 degrees. Yes, it probably had, but we don't blow up every single one it does. We let scrum halves come away from the scrum all the time. So, no, those sort of things.
You mean that every law isn't enforced 100% of the time?
Exactly. Those laws are not enforced 100% of the time. And so, there was no problem with either of those sort of things. But they have been discussion points on social media. For those of you on the podcast, we've got the air quotes going there for the discussion, which just means sort of mad rants without listening to anyone else's point of view.
Look, I mean, it's interesting. That play in general was quite interesting because if the ref hadn't have been in the way, the try probably still would have been scored. Not from DMAC running through, but the fact is that there was nobody on the inside that was covering Aaron Smith running an inside line off DMAC. So, I don't think the impact was as big as what everybody's trying to make out. And the other thing is that I sort of think, the reality is, and we talk about this in Super Rugby quite constantly, is that there's often key decisions that go the wrong way or against a certain team, the Blues, and you just have to grow a thicker skin and put it behind you. Flush the dunny, as our friend Mr. Hansen likes to say, and move on.
Isn't dunny an Australianism rather than a Kiwiism?
There's lots. You're probably stronger over there, but we had the outside dunny over here back in the day.
Oh, okay. We are just basically the sixth state of Australia anyway over here.
Apparently, constitutionally, yes, still correct.
Really?
Mm. It was written into their constitution, not ours.
Oh, okay.
But I digress.
Are their taxes higher or lower than ours? Because
higher.
Higher? Yeah, no, we don't want it then. Bad Australia. Oh dear. So, and then basically in the second half, the French came back after that try and really pressurised the All Blacks, but couldn't get that score before half time. And going in 21-14 down would have been demoralising, especially the way it happened with another refereeing decision going against them, the third game in a row. So I think that probably played probably part of it. And after half time, France got into the All Blacks half again didn't come away with points, and then the floodgates kind of really opened. DMAC went through a big gap between a couple of forwards. Sure, one of the forwards came in at a misread. Even if he hadn't, we had two front rows he was running between. Neither of them would have touched him. France has basically got someone there, or the All Blacks spotted the. What do you call it? Anyway, misalignments or mismatches.
Yeah, mismatch.
There we go. and made the best of it. And
sorry. I mean, I was just going to say it might be an opportune time to talk DMAC then, wouldn't it?
oh, go on in, talk DMAC.
Don't you think? Don't you think? I mean, I'm just sort of thinking. Obviously, his first moment in the game was throwing an intercept, but I thought he had a very good game. Obviously, 2 tries. And some good touches around the field as well. I mean, there were, after he had his cameos from the first 2 tests, or actually more than a cameo in the second, there were concerns about, is he really a number 10 and up to it and that? But no, I thought he actually had a very good game this weekend.
Yeah, I think he had a good game as well. I think we'll still have people saying, oh, he's not a 10 for another season, at least. It's going to take a while to sort this out. Another comment in here that World Rugby definitely needs to something about the consistency and quality of referees. Too much difference between North and Southern Hemisphere approach allowed, and that's been going on for decades, to be honest. And I think the difference has been how people have been reacting to it nowadays than how they reacted to it a decade ago or decade plus ago.
If that comment is correct, or in terms of shouldn't we had a Northern Hemisphere ref in the All Blacks game. Shouldn't the French team be performing better in that game? Because we don't understand how the Northern Hemisphere referee is going to run the match or, officiate. Shouldn't it be beneficial to the Northern Hemisphere team because they're playing under that referee or that style all the time?
Maybe this particular game, we had a lot of people said in the second game that the contact in the air and coming down, whilst in Super Rugby, we all said that was a red all day. In the Northern Hemisphere, they're like, nah, it's a yellow, if anything. And so there are definitely inconsistencies, but whereas previously it would get flagged up as being, oh, that's a North-South thing. Nowadays it gets flagged up as being let's say the world is coming to an end and think that the rugby's all over, it's dead, I'm not watching anymore. Phil Kearns style, which is just it's just killing me. Especially when the commentators, we see this particularly in Australia, but we've seen it from other commentators as well. Just the moment there's a decision that goes either against them or is slightly controversial, they just pile in on the ref and pile in on World Rugby, and I've just had enough.
I think it's more rather than sort of focus in on the fact that they pile in on the ref. I think it's the issue with it is the misinformation, because obviously as we're discovering more and more people don't actually know the laws of rugby, and you can't blame them because they're not necessarily easy to understand in that, and so they're relying on the commentators to tell them what is right and what is wrong. And we had a situation, obviously we have it all the time with Phil Kearns, but we had a situation with Justin Marshall in the All Blacks France game where he goes and says, oh, they should be doing this, the referee should be doing that, and this is like, well, that's not the law, so he's doing the right thing because he's following the law. You're not. You're making up your own rules as you go along.
And John Kerwin did the same thing this weekend in the halftime show, saying that not explaining that the laws of the game say that try or that blocking of the French from half, actually there's no law to prevent that from happening. Yep. So there are some real problems that need to be sorted out by the commentators. I think mainstream media's got a lot of blame to shoulder for a lot of the outcries and a lot of the way that the social media things are going, and I think they could help to help people concentrate more on the positives than just purely bashing the game the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like other sports actually do. We seem to be quite unique in the fact that our commentators seem to run the sport that they commentate on down instead of just accentuating the positive.
Yep. So we're going to accentuate the positives and talk about some good stuff.
Yes.
I thought that that DMAC went well. We also had some. Rico got himself a hat trick, and we were talking about the last Hash Rugby chat how Julian Sevilla scored tries more frequently than Juan Alonu. And maybe Rico is the guy to go and bust some of these records. We'll have to see over the next few years. But yeah, he's racking them up pretty quickly. At the
Well,
moment.
he's back up to run a ball, isn't he?
Back up to run a ball, is he?
Yeah, 16 from 16. He was falling behind a bit, but now he's back to one per game, I believe. But you know how I get things wrong, so I could have it wrong.
So listeners, don't worry, we'll get the facts. You don't have to necessarily all of you come.
I'll rely on the old guy that comes on the show.
Yeah. So what do we?
The thing that I liked about DMAC was the fact that we talked about previous All Black France, the 1 and 2, where the backline sort of had a sameness about it in terms of the players across the field. I thought what DMAC brings is that nippiness, for want of a better term. I don't know how else to explain it, but what we also would expect from a Milner Scudder, a stepper, looking for those gaps and the mismatches, as you said it, as opposed to just sort of bashing your way through type player. And so I thought that variety in the backline was actually quite a good thing for the All Blacks.
No, it is good. And so Rico Iwani, 16 appearances, 80 points. Can you do the maths?
No. That's gone past my 12 times table.
So you're quite right. 16 appearances, 16 tries is where he's at. So currently, yes, he's run a ball. You were correct. You got two things correct tonight. Well done.
I just got marking it up. People on listening to the podcast wouldn't have been able to see him marking up another correct one.
Maybe we need to get a whiteboard. We can keep track of
when Ashwin gets stuff right.
Yeah. Anyway, we're nearly halfway through the show. Well, supposedly,
yes.
Obviously, we're going to overrun yet again. This is not going to be a half-hour show, folks. This might go a bit longer. Anything else from that game, or are we just going to chalk it up?
Scott Barrett. How can we go past without talking about Scott Barrett? And
the first person I mentioned in the talk about. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, right. Sorry. Did we talk about him? Did I miss it?
I talked about him, but you didn't. Go on.
Sorry,
I say.
I was just like, he just seems to be stepping up. He seems to be improving. The more he plays in the black jersey, he seems to be getting better and better. Not saying that he wasn't good before, but really starting to have a presence. And it's going to make it interesting when our friend Mr. Retallick comes back, and then they do actually look at Scott Barrett as being a lock come 6. Do you slot him in on that blind side?
No, absolutely not. No, don't do that. Oh no. In this game, 19 tackles. He was top tackler, 1 missed, 10 carries for 17 metres. He didn't really get very far.
How about horses for courses? If that Springbok pack is starting to muscle up, like back in the day, sort of type Springbok packs, do you want to bring in that power for power type scenario? And you have a Sam Cane, Reed, and Scott Barrett on the side. Uh-oh. That's not the T, I hope. Yes. So, of course, Scott Barrett, just Jack saying Scott Barrett was great, but behind Brady Retallick, obviously he's not going to displace a Brady Retallick, but great to have him on the bench. Obviously, great cover. And it's just a question of, depending on the side we're playing, the type of forward pack, we put him at 6. Liam Squire's there. I don't know if he took his chances 100% in that first test before getting injured. But, did he play? See, I'm old and I forget. But, I don't know. I just sort of think you throw it out there. Here comes Paul. Hopefully he's still alive. He looks like he's still alive.
Yep, no, I'm still alive. Sorry about that. I'll try and get through the rest of the show. No, he had a great game. I guess the question isn't really whether he'll replace Brady Retallick, whether he'll replace Sam Whitelock. But that's why he's still young. There's no rush to have him play more rugby than he needs to. And he's 24 years old, so he's got plenty of time on his side. It's a great guy to have coming off the bench.
And how do we think Sam Whitelock's performing at the moment?
He's generally a player who you don't hear talked about during a game, is he? That's not his style of play.
No,
It's
down
all
on
the quiet stuff that most of us don't really spot and don't really see what he's doing. So, yes, he did lots of stuff I didn't see.
Yes.
So, yeah. Clearly he does some great stuff because they lose when they don't have him. But like in Chicago. But yeah.
True.
But I think you would. Yeah, I think you'd go with Liam Squire or Fafita ahead of Scott Barrett as a 6. I really don't. Yeah, I wouldn't want to see him out of position like that.
I wouldn't be comfortable with a Fafita against the South Africa at the moment. Tell you the truth, or a big forward pack that is basically about up the guts against an Australia. Absolutely, any day of the week. But some of these teams when they're starting to put big forward packs out there, I'm not sure about a Fafita against them.
Well, we will have to wait and see on that one.
Absolutely.
Moving slowly on because we're not doing anything swiftly.
No.
Australia, Ireland, 16-20. This one was a bit of an old style kicking duel proper test match.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's interesting because I was obviously in a very, very, very tiny minority. Because I actually found it hard to get into this game. I mean, I watched the game, I watched the whole game, but I found it hard to get into it. And then I was reading all these tweets and reports afterwards. What a fantastic game it was! And I was thinking, it was a good, tough battle, but wouldn't say it was a great game. I don't know. What was your impressions of it, Paul?
My impressions of it were that I was sick and in bed by the time this game was on. Anyone who saw my All Blacks France live post match review will realise, what a state I was in. So yes, fully drugged up and in bed, asleep. And I'll be honest, I've just watched highlights of this one, so I've got the key moments. But as far as an enthralling game, not. I'd say it clearly wasn't part of it wasn't your basketball style, lots of tries, big score game.
Oh, not after watching all those French offloads, and then you go to that, and it's just like really defence orientated. Even the Australians weren't really doing the razzle dazzle, so it was just a real hard graft. I mean, that second half where basically both teams just had the ball on halfway and they'd lose it, and the other team would have the ball on halfway, not really making any forward momentum.
Having said that, there was only 9 turnovers to Australia and 8 to Ireland, so there weren't that many sort of turnovers per se. And kicking wise as well, only 16 kicks from Australia, 10 from Ireland. Ireland really didn't kick this ball much at all. They really wanted to play with ball in hand and just go through the phases.
Look, we talked about this after the previous Ireland games. They really just don't seem to do anything in attack, though. Really, it's just there's nothing creative. They're just waiting for the forwards to go forward and maybe create a hole somewhere, but really the backs just don't seem to be creating anything.
And their only try of the game came from a line-out maul, to be fair.
Yeah.
So the 5 clean breaks, 2 more than Australia, who got three clean breaks. So, but they definitely relied on their defence.
Yep. Oh, look, that's the key thing that comes out of this game, right? Is that both Australia and Ireland had terrific defence because it appears that they had terrific defence. If you're not really doing anything creative, is it hard to shut a back line down or a team down? That's the question, I suppose. You look at that one try that Australia scored to Korobedi, and it's just like, hey, something creative, a little kick through, bit of pinball and bounces into his hands and something creative. But other than that, you're sort of looking, what's happening? You look at Australia, you've got someone who's that great in the air. Where's a cross kick to Folau? Not a lot of that happening. No.
As we say, for a team that has someone like Folau, only 16 kicks in the game is really not playing to your strengths.
Yeah.
When we saw the Waratahs take the Rebels to pieces, It was when Foley was just putting those kicks across continuously to Folau when he was winning them all.
Yep, so, and you think the combination's there because they play together at Super Rugby level. So,
yep,
yeah.
So it's a bit surprising they don't use that. You use that more, as you say. 14 penalties to Australia, 12 by Australia, 12 by Ireland. The whistle was being blown quite regularly.
The phrase is the whistle. The P was blown out of the whistle.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, the P was blown out of the whistle. And let's. So we've already quickly discussed the two tries. The Koroibete try, a bit like the one we're going to talk about when we come to England as well, kicking along that diagonal. Something that England have. I saw someone actually got 3 clips, one of Farrell kicking it, one of Ford, and one of Cipriani. So it's clearly a tactic that England use on a fairly regular basis. It looks like we might be seeing something that we'll see Australia pick up as well.
Oh, look, I don't understand why teams don't use the little kicks in behind more, because let's face it, defence is all about rush defence now. You might mix it up a bit with an up and out, but it's usually still a rush up and out. And therefore you'd think that the kicks in behind, good kicks in behind, are a very good option, but doesn't seem to be happening. I see, just some of the comments coming through in the chat room about Australia definitely missed Guinea. Phipps and then going to Powell is definitely a step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, Australia weren't at full strength, and they do. In certain places, Australia have got some depth. Scrum half is not one of them, as we've seen. Fly half is another one that's not either. So, if they lose one of their halves, they're really in trouble. Our Ireland,
Australia,
Australia.
Yeah. Actually, that's probably Australia's biggest problem is their depth and key positions.
Yep. Agreed. And also their kicking as well. In this one, actually, Foley's kicking was more accurate than Sexton's, but that's the exception rather than the norm. He can have some really poor days.
And then the disappointing. I'll come to one thing before we leave that game, which I'll leave to the end.
Yellow cards yet, so we're going to do yellow cards before we leave.
Sweet. I thought just in case we were going to go on, but I was just like, we'll talk about the yellow cards, then we'll come to the final whistle.
Okay then.
Makes sense. Logical, isn't it? Not that we do anything logically.
I do try sometimes, but hey.
But we don't let you.
Yes. So Stockdale leading with the arm. Now this is something we've seen increasingly over the last few years. Well, actually probably since the 2015 Rugby World Cup, we've seen quite a lot of players leading with the arm. He got the height wrong, hit the neck, quite clearly yellow, and maybe even red, to be honest. Was there force? Yes. Was it towards the head neck area? Yes. Should that be a red? Potentially. If it'd been any higher, it would have been red. I don't like this leading with the arm. I think it's going to lead to injuries and players getting hurt. And this whole pushing the defender away is illegal. You're allowed a straight arm fend. You're not allowed to be pushing players away. But it's something that's coming to the game, and it's something that referees allow now. And I think it is potentially dangerous, and something that we perhaps should stop.
I agree with you in that when I saw it happen live, well not live, but live, and then when they came back to it even more so, as I thought, ooh, technically that's a red, but in the defence of Stockdale, it was more of a reflex thing that he did as opposed to an intended thing that he did. Like, because it was such a close play, his arm was tucked up, and so obviously the instinctive thing was just to bring your arm up, and that's how his arm ended up, or forearm ended up in the throat area. In saying that, it met all the criteria for a red card. Absolutely 100%, all the criteria. Could he have taken care not to have done it? Absolutely. He didn't have to bring the elbow up. It was instinctive, but it was with force, and it was to the head and neck area. And with some of the red cards that we've seen in recent times, and you sort of think, I wouldn't have been surprised if a red had been pulled out.
I think we got above the neck onto the chin. It would have probably been, but no, I think he was just low enough to get away with it. But as you say, it's some of the if he'd been tackling at that height,
Yeah.
No wrapped arms or anything. So what's the difference? So apparently, because you're carrying the ball, it's all correct. No wrapping arms and just dropping and just bashing someone off. And then we had Folau's one. So Folau, first player of the game, goes up, collects the ball, and cleans the man out and knocks him down. And that's all okay because he gets the ball. Later on, he doesn't quite get the ball, but he's still competitive. But as he comes down, reaches down, puts his arm round the torso, or his arm comes down and touches the torso of the Irish jumper, and the Irish jumper comes down on his back, and so it's a yellow. Go on, him.
Well, actually, I saw it, that second one where he got the yellow. His arm actually touches the arm of the Irishman, well, the way I saw it, rather than the torso. But in saying that, I actually agreed with the yellow card because he has made contact. Other than the process of going for the ball, on the way down, he then makes that second contact with the arm of the Irishman, and therefore he's now not going for the ball, obviously, and therefore he's tipped him over. You could say, yeah, there's onus on the lifter, like the old beast manages to do, where he brings them back from going past the horizontal. I'm sure you've seen videos of that. But, at the end of the day, Folau has made contact with the arm on there. And if we're asking for consistency, then that call is consistent. That's what I'm going to say. I mean, you can disagree, Christian, but the fact is that we can't go from asking for consistency and when they're being consistent, then sort of say, oh, no, I didn't like the call.
Now, when I first saw all the clips on Twitter, and I was like, that was a harsh yellow. When I actually sat down and watched the highlights and listened to the ref, it was like, okay, I understand why he's given the yellow. Because as you say, he contested for the ball absolutely fine. Once the ball had left, he then makes contact afterwards.
Yep.
And that's where it becomes a yellow. And so therefore I understand why it became a yellow. But as I say, if you just see the clips on Twitter, I can really understand why people are upset and think it's wrong. But if you listen to the explanation, you can see how the referees got there and why he's ended up with yellow. So, yeah, I'm comfortable with it after hearing that explanation. But I was equally hands up in the air. I just didn't tweet about it.
And then I suppose the other person that should have got a yellow was Phil Kearns.
Really?
Well, you probably think he should have got a red, but...
Absolutely.
Fiddly-dee, potato. I was like, what the hell was that?
Oh, I missed that bit. I've seen some comments about it, but I've not actually heard that bit. Jack, please keep your comment. Please watch your language in the chat.
But we oh, look, I mean, that is a scenario where the TV station surely has to be looking at and saying that's not on, because their commentary will be the international commentary going out as well. Obviously, going back to Ireland will be an Irish commentary, but the rest of the world, it'll be the Aussie commentators.
So, yeah, as someone says, Phil Kearns made a huge deal about the yellow card. That was wrong. And that is a problem. Phil Kearns is a problem, or his commentary is a problem. I don't know what he's like away from the microphone, to be honest. But as a commentator, yes, he is a problem for the game. So that was
Christian's right. It's like spends all night whinging about his commentary is complaining about the refs and whinging about the refs. That's what his commentary is based on, basically.
Sometimes he also complains about the opposition as well. But Australia can't do any
fiddly potato.
Now, that bordering on racist comments as well.
Absolutely
is totally out of order, and I have seen some comments on Twitter, but I hadn't actually heard exactly what he said, so I can't comment exactly. But talking about potatoes and an island is a dangerous place to go, and he should not have done that. Absolutely.
Well, the thing is the whole context of the scenario too. It was just like he was a lick it up fan sitting in the seat in the stand making a comment rather than the professional commentator commentating on an international rugby fixture who's being broadcast around the world.
Yep. And I think with that we've done enough talking.
No, we've got one. No, we do have one more talking point that we have to talk about. Was the final whistle?
Okay.
Well, so I don't know. You might not have seen it in the highlights. So basically, Australia's on attack. The ball is going out to the right-hand blind, so to speak. They've got about 4 players on, about 3, but they're not very exactly in position 3 as defensively. And the ball goes behind the 4 backs. The Australians claim it was touched by the Irish player. I think it might have been Stockdale. So they whistles blowing, and the Australians complaining, so they go up to TMO. Now, the interesting thing is that I think most people will agree that it was most likely touched by the Irishman, and therefore intentional knock-on, penalty, game carries on 5 metres out from the line. What do they do? Take a line-out drive or whatever. But the footage was inconclusive, and there was absolutely TMO goes, look, the footage is inconclusive. We can't say that definitively that the Irishman touched the ball. And then he had to tell the referee, so our French referee goes, so we go line out? And this is like, yes, correct. The ball is in touch, but the game is over. Okay, so we go line out. I repeat, the hooter has gone, the game is over. Or along those lines, anyway. Which was rather amusing for the end of the game.
So some communication issues. And yeah,
when
it's not your first language, you're under pressure. Things, it's fine. That's normal.
It was just a shame. I think it would have been great if if it had been an intentional knock-on. It would have been absolute great drama for that. Because obviously the series on the line, a try wins it for Australia, would have actually led to some great drama with that. But hey, wasn't to be.
So then, over to South Africa, a proper wet game, as we were shown by the sort of pre-match. Welcome, I guess. I don't really call it entertainment because it's not. It's their cultural piece. It's the pre-match welcome, as the guys ran out, obviously in barefoot in traditional costume, and fell on their black backsides a couple of times. A bit. Amusing, obviously seeing people fall over, but perhaps, not the best time for it. So yes, wet weather game.
But not politically correct.
Well, yes. And in this game, defences tackling was great. So it's 88% by the South Africans, 80% by England, which meant that it turned into a kicking duel. And discipline became the big issue in this game, and South Africa basically couldn't maintain their discipline. Lost basically at the breakdown. They lost the battle of the breakdown. Got pinged continuously for holding on, quite often in attacking when they actually had the ball rather than defensively, which gave England the territory they want. 14 penalties by South Africa, only 6 by England, which is going to give you a territorial and possession advantage. And Farrell took full advantage with the boot.
Absolutely, it's just basically, as you said, I think the environmental conditions obviously helped out the English quite a bit, and they took better. They played to the conditions a lot better than the South Africans were able to. Obviously, handling was an issue in terms of if not dry, you can't move the ball as quickly, and it sort of played into the English hands. I felt, but I could be wrong. That's been happened in the past. And the kick. I mean, you alluded to the kick for Johnny May in the corner. That's the type of tactics that you deploy, and Cipriani put a perfect kick in and did it well.
Everyone's saying how wonderful his kick was.
it was a jammy.
That's exactly. It was a lucky kick. It was, and everyone's going, look at Farrell. He's made his perfect kick, and look, Farrell's scowling at him. No, he's made a kick that to everybody looks like it's going dead, and hence Farrell's scowling at him. And Johnny May just happened to be quick enough to just save the day. So, yes, this the title in on ESPN. Actually, I'll go back and get the actual title. Cipriani Magic helps England come good against and losing streak. Well, hey, if his magic is to somehow from a long distance stop the ball, just slow the ball down slightly, yes, he got lucky with that one. Let's be honest. Johnny May has definitely come of age and shown how he's matured over the last couple of years and become a world-class winger. He's added. I said on Twitter that he's upped his work rate and improved his running lines. Someone who watches him play club rugby said, "Now he's always had that work rate. He's just applying it better." Well, maybe that's true, but yes, he's definitely turned into a world-class winger now. He's straightened his line up. He doesn't run sideways so much, and his covering on defence as well is one of those things that has improved. And we saw that in this game where he picked up the ball and then ran all the way across the pitch in his own in-goal area before clearing it.
And one of the other things is it's one of the English chariots that's actually got some wheels.
He has got some. Yes, he's definitely got some wheels.
The only downside for the English at the moment is the fact that obviously not likely to rain a lot in Japan during the Rugby World Cup.
It's not, but their winning of the breakdown was definitely a positive from this game. Their discipline was a positive from this game, and winning the kicking duel. I mean, we had 33 kicks from South Africa to 40 from England in this game. Whereas if you compare that to the Ireland game, where I think it was 16 and 10, it shows that this boot hit leather on this one pretty much once a minute.
This was synthetic outside of the ball.
Well, yes, okay. So, and Christian says quite defensive game, and you're right. That has been England's success during that winning streak was their defensive and hassling. It wasn't particularly enlightening or great attacking play. It was dogged defence and take advantage of the opposition errors, really.
But that's been one of the things that the conversation in terms of when England, I mean, have looked to do an expansive game, and it really hasn't worked for them. And the game has generally been about utilising the forward dominance, getting forward dominance, and then using your backs after that. So you could say it's a bit of going back to what they're good at.
Yes, and that's Jones has been taking a lot of flack, and I think Jones is perhaps one of the few coaches in the world where he doesn't come in and have a set tactic or set way of playing. There are other coaches who, when they arrive, you go, okay, this team is going to play this way. Whereas Eddie Jones is a guy who I think when he went to Japan, matured and got and understood how much culture was important in rugby. Now maybe he clicked that beforehand, but one of the things he right when he arrived in England was saying, right, I want to get back to the English culture of playing, and that was definitely not how Japan play. There's a guy who can adapt his tactics to match the players or the culture that he's working in, which I think is very good. I mean,
Japan do run around the field like fire ants.
Mav74 mentioned that defensively Farrell really at 12 isn't the right answer, but England really don't have a stock of good 12s, so we're using a fly half in there instead. Sorry,
what's the issue with Teo?
Well, I mean, Teo looked good until he got for all the provincial games on the Lions Tour. As soon as he got to international level, wasn't quite up to it. I think that's probably the difference.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that he's good when he can get through somebody, but if he's going to be up against Sonny Bill Williams, he's not going to get through him very often.
I just apologise to everybody. I'm looking around because there's so much rain coming down at the moment. I'm wondering whether I should be going out and building an ark.
Chris was asking in the chat, have we talked about Japan yet? No, we haven't talked about Japan yet. So apart from the fact that Eddie Jones used to be their coach, that's the only bit we said about Japan so far.
Yeah, it was Japan, yeah. Yes.
So England played the conditions better. South Africa lost the breakdown battle, and that led to them giving up much more penalties, which led Farrell both kicking from hand and also from the tee to take the game away from them, essentially.
So, does South Africa? I mean, obviously, South Africa made quite a few changes for the third and final game. Does that also show what we discussed with Australia? They have issues really. They can put out a pretty good 15 or /23, but look, the depth is the question, and whether they've got the depth when they've got key players go down.
I think we've also got I think the conditions were a big thing for them. They don't play under these conditions very often. Elson Yankees is not a wet weather player. He's a guy who likes to run it. He much prefers the dry weather. I mean, look what a mess he was in Wellington 2 seasons ago.
Lost at sea.
Totally lost at sea. Yeah, he's not a wet weather player. We've got a few examples of that at Super Rugby and at international level now.
Yeah,
don't play him.
You'd probably find quite a few South Africans saying Elton Yankees is not a player.
Well, there is.
He's a polarizing figure within South African rugby.
So that to me, it didn't help them. So they got their horses for courses were the wrong horses. They weren't seahorses. So that's part of it. I think there's also an element of, this isn't not really an area I want to go into much discussion of, but the transformation targets is, I think he's been juggling the ratios within his team at times, which, because one of the things that was said about the initial centre pairing is that, well, these the other two guys playing who play today, and I was like, well, they're both white. And it's noticed that when they came into play, suddenly the Willie LaRue and Pollard were dropped for Hellant and Elson Yankees. So I think there's an element there of him trying to balance.
Shuffling.
Yep. Of that and the politics in it. So
good time to move on then.
Good time to move on, exactly. Argentina versus Scotland, the last Tier 1 game of the round. And this game basically lasted 20 minutes.
I can't comment at all. I have not seen this game at all. I haven't even seen any highlights, so I'm going to leave it all to you and say, what's going wrong with Argentina?
Well, at the moment, if they missed, basically they have no cover defence in that first 20 minutes. So they would miss a tackle and it was a try. Miss another tackle, it was a try. So whilst they might make quite a few tackles, again, I've only seen highlights, I'm not actually seen the full game of this one. But basically they every time they missed a tackle, Scotland scored in that first 20 minutes, and hence they racked up a 28-3 lead before the first quarter was even finished, or as the first quarter was finished. And at that point, it was, let's be honest, all over. Scotland were playing some lovely rugby, and they got another try before half time. So it was 3:36 at half time. Second half, Argentina actually won 12-8. But let's be honest, it was all over long before then. And so with the coach already having resigned, we're coming off the back of 2 losses. There was quite a bit going wrong with
there's something's amiss.
Turnovers were an issue from them. 19 turnovers, 10 in this game. We saw that similar thing against Wales as well. They just couldn't hold on to the ball. They're tackling 79%, whereas Scotland were 85%. So again, they were on the wrong side of that, and they conceded 10 penalties to Scotland's 8. Not much of a difference there really. Both sides had problems at line-out, both losing 4 line-outs. So both sides were struggling on that side of things. But basically, it's those turnovers and the tackling just mean that Scotland got to camp in the Argentinian half and score points at will in that first quarter, and then it was all over.
It's just amazing. It's strange though, because at the end of the day, they were competitive against Wales. I mean, they did, and the like, and then come up. You would have thought they'd be would have gone on favourites against Scotland, who had lost to the Olympic champions the week before. So, it's real head scratcher. Real head scratcher. It's just like, I think it comes down to the Latin temperament and all sorts of things. Coach resigning. As you say, I think it's a bit of a mess there, and you have to wonder whether it'll affect the Jaguares in Super Rugby going forward as well for the next few rounds.
Yeah, clean breaks 7-20. Again, in 20 clean breaks, that's you've got some serious problems defensively.
Yeah,
and defense is all about commitment and putting your body on the line, and they just don't want to do it for this coach. I think.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And this is like, did they really want to be there?
And so
probably not.
So no, probably not. They also try to overplay. 198 passes for 119 runs. That is a lot of passing for running. Usually you're about 20 or 30 more passes, and actually in some of the games you're not having less passes than you do runs. To have 80 more passes than runs is crazy. They were trying to go wide too quickly. They're not getting isolated, turning over the ball. It's all there.
Yeah.
Jack says Fiji are the Olympic champions. They are at 7s. They're not at 15s. So
I was just looking at unbiased rugby comment there on the Argentinians being tired, and we did actually discuss this prior to the international window actually starting. Is that with the Jaguares basically being the Argentinian side, how much is that wear and tear factor going to be on either the Argentinians or the Jaguares when they come back as well? Because, that step up of international rugby and putting your body on that line that extra bit more.
Yep, true. We'll have to see how that impacts them. I think they'll want to play for Mario Ledesma more. There's talk, lots of people are suggesting he should be the Argentinian coach. Look, he's only been a head coach for 3 months or 4 months. This is his first ever head coaching position at the Jaguares. He's a year out from the Rugby World Cup. Is this really the best time for him to be stepping up into the national coaches situation? Not really. I think he might have to, but it would be much better to have him have two seasons of Super Rugby under his belt and then take over after the Rugby World Cup. Would have been a much better situation than they're in now, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. And the current coach has had problems enforced on him. So they said they were going to pick European players. So the first thing that happens, Sanchez goes and signs for Stade Francais. Well, okay, we've just gone and lost our best fly half, and oh dear, everyone else seems to be about to leave the Jaguares for better money because they can still get international caps. Sorry guys, changed our minds. We're not going to pick European players. Okay.
Crap.
You need to decide what you're going to do and stick to it. If you are going to pick European players, the Jaguares are going to be hurt. If you aren't going to pick European players, then the Pumas are going to be hurt. One of them is going to suffer. You've just got to decide which one it's going to be and live with that and try and work the best you can within that situation. And at the moment, they really don't know what they do. They don't know how to handle that. So yeah, I do have some sympathy for the Argentinian coach. So that's the Tier 1 games. Let's quickly run through the Tier 2 matches. Fiji hosted Tonga, and I must admit, I was surprised by this result. 19-27, Tonga won this one by 8 points, so 2 scores relatively comfortably. I've not seen the game, but surprised by that one. I was expecting Fiji to win this one personally. I don't know about yourself.
No, I would have picked Fiji to easily win that one. So I was rather surprised when I saw the result on that. I don't know if we couldn't find, it wasn't on Sky, whereas the other games had been previous. So I don't know if there was any televised coverage of that game.
Yeah,
I'm guessing it probably.
I didn't see any of it either. So
yeah. Yep. No, so that was a surprise. I think. What was?
Then after that we had Japan versus Georgia. I think this was a real key game for these two sides. two sides people have been talking about as being the best Tier 2 side. I mean, people have been talking up Georgia, being part of a Tier 1 competition, all this kind of stuff. And I've said a couple of times before, Georgia have never beaten a Tier 1 side. Japan have. And they've come off the back of beating Italy as well in this window. Sure, they lost the second game, but they won the first one. And then to go 28-0 against Georgia. This was definitely a statement game by the Brave Blossoms.
Absolutely. Look, Japan have got potential, I think, and they're starting to show it. You've got to take some sort of confidence. It's going back a while, but you beat South Africa in a World Cup. You've got to take that. You've got to use that, and the pair that they are. As you said, they played well against Italy. They did lose the second game. This was a benchmark game in the fact that people were talking about Georgia being so good, but in Japan who was better. But Japan basically stamped their authority on that game and sort of says, we're the next cab off the rank. And now do you start talking about them becoming in the Seven Nations?
No, we talk about them joining the rugby championship, which they will do after the Rugby World Cup in 2021. So that's what's going to happen. Just some stats off this one. We were talking about how much the Jaguares were passing the gap ball. Compare that to Georgia, 78 passes for 89 runs. A lot of pick and going there, playing very narrow. And when you've got a side like Japan who man up and make 93% of their tackles, then you're going to struggle. I mean, 82% of their tackles by Georgia is definitely handy, but yeah, you're not going to, if you're going to play narrow like that, like Georgia did, against a defence like Japan that stands up, and if you don't get it, then you're going to struggle. 9 turnovers by Japan, 18 by Georgia. So again, they couldn't keep hold of the pill either.
Basically, I think we've had this, we've had discussions around the Georgian team, and it's something. The forward pack's good. You've got the players that are in premiership teams, etc., through the European competitions, but their backline is where they're really struggling, isn't it?
Yeah, and I remember when I did reviewed their squad for the 2015 Rugby World Cup.
Did you get a payment from one of the oligarchs?
Unfortunately, no. But I did do a 4-hour podcast for another podcast that I'm not sure if it ever got out. But anyway, we went on way too long. Let's be honest. But so the Georgia, the entire, I think out of their entire pack, they had like one domestic-based player. All the rest were playing in France, effectively. Then you looked at their backs, and nearly, I think they had like one player that wasn't domestically based. And Georgia do not have a full-time professional domestic league. So basically they're arriving with a professional pack and a semi-professional back line. Now, things have improved, but you don't change a culture overnight. They enjoy their wrestling, and they enjoy their forward play at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the comment in the chat rooms. I mean, like in the performance of the Georgian team at the under-20s seems to indicate they might be starting to develop some guys that might be able to play in the back line.
They're going the right way, but I still think they've got a long way to go.
Yep.
So that's the... and then finally we had Canada versus the United States. Canada 17, USA 42. I think this was pretty much what we were all expecting to happen. Because, let's be honest, having beaten Scotland, and also thrashing Russia, whereas Canada lost to Scotland and lost to Russia, this was definitely going to be the kind of the kind of result we were expecting. Some crazy stats though: meters running 426 by Canada, 500 by the USA. 426 meters running for 17 points. You've not been very. You've had some problems somewhere.
What?
Yeah.
That doesn't. That's illogical, Jim. Yeah. Look, I mean, just that. Jack's just made a comment, and I was thinking the same thing. Something's wrong with Canadian rugby.
Yes. Now we could probably.
Don't know what.
So they can't keep a coach for more than a year. Their administration is far too much about having jollies on, well, allegedly having having jollies and have the prestige of having the role than actually than actually running the game and listening to 99 something or other. I've gone blank. Sorry, someone I followed for a long time. He had a chat with him on Skype about this. Yeah, the administration side of Canadian rugby is a mess at the moment. He organises lots. His job is actually organising events in bars, and he organises events in bars for rugby games, and he tries to do that, and he does that around the Sevens competition in Canada, and Canadian rugby just won't work with him. And he's like, I organise these things. I get people into bars to watch rugby. I generate rugby fans, and you don't want to work with me. Okay, it's because I tell the people how useless you are, don't I? He uses a bit stronger language than that, and obviously he's upset them. But they need to be man enough to realise that they need people like him to grow the sport in Canada, and they're just not looking at working with them.
Well, you look at places like Canada, and obviously we've spoken about America with their professional competition they have. Really, for rugby to sort of succeed and grow in those areas, you're relying on personalities that are entrenched in the game. Well, not entrenched, but have a really passionate about the game to get in there and basically wave the flag and grow the game. You're not going to do it through committees.
No, you're not. Interesting. Jack's saying, why don't they add teams to the Major League Rugby competition? They are. So currently Major League Rugby has got 7 teams in it. There's talk of it being, I think it's 10 at least next season. One of those rumoured is rumoured to be Vancouver, and then also there's a team, and I'm going to get the name wrong, but I think it's Toronto Archers or something along those sort of lines, who have been doing a pre-season this season, and they're using it as a feasibility study to see whether it's actually financially viable for them to produce a Major League Rugby team. So there could potentially be 2 teams joining Major League Rugby next season from Canada. So yes, it's definitely on the cards. It's going to happen soon. And that's one of the things we said about the USA's victory over Scotland was that the fitness of the players was much better because they are the entire squad for the first time ever was fully professional. So their fitness was better and they didn't fade, which they have done in the past. And Canada doesn't have that yet. So getting those teams, sure, they're not going to be immediately better overnight or much better, but they will at least get their fitness up, and all the other bits will improve in the couple of years after that, as we're going to see with the USA. The USA is on an upward trajectory on the pitch. Off the pitch, they still need to sort out a whole bunch of issues, like the fact they make a big loss and they have no money. But World Rugby is going to move in and bail them out. So it's going to happen, but again. So, I think we've covered all the games.
We're only half an hour late, sort of.
Yeah, sort of. So tomorrow night we'll be back at the same time. And don't forget, hit that like button, hit that subscribe if you're new. Tomorrow night we're back with the Hash Rugby Chat show. We'll be talking about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about our favourite moments from the weekend. We're going to say who are the winners and losers from the international week, in the international window. We're going to Super Rugby is back this weekend, so we'll be giving you a reminder as to how things stand and who's going to make the finals. We are going to talk about Argentina's losing streak leads to the resignation of the coach. Is this what the Pumas need a year out from the Rugby World Cup? So we'll talk about that in depth. And then finally, we'll try and get this question in if we have time, because we've been trying to get it in for the last couple of weeks. Isn't the whole idea of rugby to cheat? Which I think is going to be a cracker of a discussion.
I think Paul really wants to talk about that one.
I do, but we keep running out of time.
Yeah.
And perhaps I should make that question 1 sometime rather than question 5. But so there we go, folks. That's what we're talking about tomorrow night. And then on Wednesday night, we'll have the All Blacks edition. Obviously, we'll look back at this week of this the June window, which players are the winners and losers, and we'll talk about all of that kind of stuff. as well. Christian, is Herman on tomorrow night? Yes, he is. Obviously, you're missing our friend from Thailand. He'll be on tomorrow night and also Wednesday night as well. So, thank you everybody for joining us. Arswin, go on, give me a Twitter handle so they can hear about your politics and see you having high tea.
Yeah, you can find me at NZFatso on Twitter, and I'll see you there. See that enthusiasm.
Obviously, Driving Maul, best place for rugby opinion and predictions. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I've got a Twitter handle. It's on the screen. I've also got a website. Guess what? It's drivingmaul.com. So check out those things as well. There's also a newsletter, and the top comment that's pinned has a newsletter. So every Thursday, I could put an email in your inbox with all the best stuff from Driving Maul. So why don't you sign up there as well? Anything else? Become a patron. Give us those money. And we should. Oh, it's not here. I've not got my Bottlepop.
Oh no, the gimmick.
Oh dear. So we'll have to have that tomorrow night. Thank you, everybody. Good night, and stay warm and dry. Don't let the flooding have an arc so you can float away. All of that kind of stuff.